Okay, so the Trump accounts, the Form 4547, something that's brand new for 2025. This is investment accounts for children, and it's designed to function just like a traditional IRA. I guess better said, a non-deductible IRA, because just like a non-deductible IRA, you need to track basis at the point when you start taking money out of this IRA. You're going to be able to see a portion of that is taxable, a portion is a return of basis. So you're going to have to track basis. I can only assume that they're going to use the 8606 or a form just like that to track basis for these so-called Trump accounts. They can't be designated as a Roth. Unlike a traditional IRA, you can do convert to a Roth, if you will, but you can't do that here, at least not right away. When the child is an adult at age 18, then the type of the account changes, and then there's certainly some things that can be done as far as Roth is concerned. The Trump account, we're going to talk about the eligibility, who can participate, who's eligible, who's not. Contribution limits, the investment options, they're quite limited, and we'll discuss that as we go along. The distributions, when you can't take money, when you do have the ability to take the money out, how is it going to be taxed? And in some cases, could be subject to early distribution penalty and the complete tax treatment at that point. So early December, they came out with a notice 2025-68, along with a news release, and they gave us a little bit more guidance into the Trump account. And that's when they introduced us to Form 4547. That is the form that you use to establish the account. And this is something that you can file with the 2025 tax return. So if parents want to be proactive, establish the account right away, they can certainly set that up. And it also is a way to enroll for the pilot program for those individuals that have a child that's born during the year. They are eligible for participation. So here's the form, the Trump account election form 4547. The first part is the parent or guardian information, establishing this for the child. The child's information, of course, and then the pilot program in section 3. You need to check the box if you want to receive the $1,000. That is, again, believe it or not, some people can opt out. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Consent to disclose just before the signature. Anytime tax information is used for something other than establishing, filing the tax return, the taxpayer, in this case the guardian, has to give consent to disclose that information. And just a name, social security number is protected information as far as the disclosure rules go. So eligibility, who can participate? Anyone who's under the age of 18 by the end of that year. So once the year you turn 18, no more contributions can be made, and there's some uh, changes, if you will, to the account itself. You also have to possess a valid social security number issued before the account is even open. So not a big problem if someone goes to a hospital. Usually before you leave the hospital, the parents have a social security number for that child. If someone has a non-traditional birth outside the hospital, obviously they're going to make sure that they have that valid social security number in place before they can establish the account. Now, it's very similar to an IRA, but there are a few differences. Traditional IRA, you have to have earned income to be able to make a contribution. Well, in most cases, a child under the age of 15 doesn't have any earned income, so that's certainly not the case here. There is no requirement for earned income, and there's no income limits if they do have income. They can open up the account regardless of the income threshold. Now, the newborn pilot program, this is something where the government is going to actually drop in $1,000 to every eligible account for U.S. citizens born between January 1 of 2025 and December 31 of 2028. Whether they extend that, the Trump accounts again will continue past 2028. This is just the $1,000 for newborn children. Whether they extend that or not, we'll have to wait and see as we get closer to 2028. The government contribution, it's not something that's considered taxable income, not to the child, not to the parents. However, we're going to have to keep track going forward of what contributions, if any, were made by the parents, because when we establish basis, we'll talk about that on taking money out. The basis rules basically say if I'm not taxed on it when the money goes in, so this $1,000 that goes in there tax free is not going to be part of my basis when I take it out. So therefore, if I put the money, if I just have the government drop in 1,000, I let it grow and it maybe triples to $3,000 by the time I turn 18. That situation, the payment is basically does not generate any basis, so it will all be taxable if I take it out at that time. The newborn program, basically, this is something where the government's going to take a look at did the parent or guardian establish an account by filing the Form 4547? If they did not, they discover that one account has not been opened for that newborn child, they're going to automatically establish an account on behalf of that child. So, that's where I think some problems could come in as far as tracking down. Some people might have accounts and not even realize that, especially if they move after the government has opened or established an account on their behalf. Now, let's say that they do. I have a child in March of 2025. I don't file the 4547 with my 2025 tax return. In other words, I don't establish a child account for my son. The government doesn't drop in that $1,000. I could, if I want, opt out. I'm not sure the procedure at that point. I can't understand the logic of someone not wanting to take $3,000, even if the child's going to take it down the road and be taxed on it later. In my opinion, you take the free money when you can get it. Contributions themselves, they can come from any source. So friends, family, anyone can drop that money in, but there are limitations on how much we can contribute, and it's an overall limitation. So I might have a couple of uncles that want to spoil my son. I want to put some money in, and let's say we all put in a few $1,000. We got to keep the tabs of that because $5,000 is the limit until the year the child turns 18. At that point, no more contributions. The other thing to keep in mind, there is no deduction. Just like a non-deductible IRA contribution, there is no deduction for making a contribution to a Trump account. There could be, however, some penalties if we have too many people contributing or you contribute too much. Multiple accounts for that same child are basically pooled for the contribution limit of $5,000. So we could have an excess contribution, and then there's potentially for excise tax that would have to be paid on the excess contribution. How can that happen? Well, here's a basic example. Mom and dad, let's say they trade the child tax credit every other year because of the divorce. This year I have him. Next year, my ex-wife claims my son. Well, we talk about divorced parents. Sometimes they don't communicate the best. I want the best outcome for my son. My ex-wife probably wants the same thing. If we both establish accounts and fully fund them, we have basically the problem of having an excess contribution where if we each put in 5,000, now there's $10,000 in this account. And because we don't communicate, that's basically an excess contribution that would trigger an excise tax potentially. Contributions, we can put that up until the age of 18. And then at 18, control shifts to that account owner. They're no longer a child at that point. So there's no more contributions allowed from the parents, if you will. It has to be basically converts to an IRA, and then you're subject to the IRA contribution limits where you would need to have earned income. Now, there's other sources that can fund this. An employer can contribute up to $2,500 a year on behalf of the employee's child. So if I work for an employer that wants to start one of these programs, it would not be considered income to me, would not be income to my son if they drop in, say, $2,000 into that account for my son. However, that counts towards the overall $5,000 limit. So if my employer puts in $2,000, I'm limited then, or the account contributions are limited to 3,000 because the annual overall ceiling is at $5,000. Non-discrimination rules. If an employer is going to do this, they basically ensure that they're not discriminating in favor of highly compensated employees or their dependents. I can't carve out a certain segment of my workforce. I have to be basically um, apply to anyone in my business that has kids that are eligible for making these contributions, they all must participate. Now, we talk about the contribution by the employer. How will we know that happens? Well, in 2026, there's going to be new codes on box 12 of the W-2. And for the Trump accounts, if it's an employer contribution, it'd be indicated as TA. There's additional guidance for qualified tips and qualified overtime for the deduction. This on Schedule 1A. That will also be on the W-2 in 2026. So for 2026, the TA is the Trump account contribution by the employer. The final way that money can get deposited into these accounts, if you will, is contributions from tax-exempt entities, such as private foundations. They are not subject to the $5,000 annual limit. So they can dump in even more money, and the parents can still contribute as well. So what is a tax-exempt entity? Basically, if they want to benefit the kids in a specific school district or educational institution, they can do that, but they can't discriminate. Well, they have to apply to all the children from an unrelated third party contribution. So here's an example. Let's say we have a nonprofit that decides to contribute to everyone that has eligible children in the De Pere School District. Each of those 5,000 eligible children in that district receives $10,000 contribution from the tax exempt entity. Well, that doesn't count against the $5,000 limit that the parent can put in for that child. But that's the exception, and again, kind of a rare situation. Now, as far as gifting is concerned, every year we have a threshold on how much we can give in annual gifts without having to file a gift tax return. For 2025 and for 2026, that amount is 19,000. This counts towards that. So if I put in $5,000 for my son, I have to watch that as my overall contribution limits for the, or should I say, gifts. This contribution will count towards that gift threshold. If I go more than that in total gifts, let's say it's 16, I would give him $5,000 for his Trump account and in a $20,000 car. Well, I have to file a gift tax return because I've gone over the threshold. Contributions to a Trump account don't affect their ability to make a contribution to a traditional or Roth IRA. What are we talking about here? Let's say that my son has a job when he turns 16 and he earns $6,000 over the summer. He can dump all of that into a, a traditional IRA, better yet, a Roth IRA, because he's not going to have any kind of tax liability if that's his only income. We put it into a Roth IRA. I can also contribute to his Trump account. So that doesn't count against that threshold. The account structure, where's this money going to go? I get this question a lot. The funds have to be invested in a qualified mutual fund, which essentially is going to be mirroring the S&P 500 or some other index basically made up of US companies. So that's where the investment's going to go. And it's going to be in a low income fund. When I say low, I mean low. The annual expense can't be more than 0.1% of the balance of the investment inside that fund. So you don't see that a lot, and that's why it's going to take a long time to structure these. Their contributions are not going to be available until uh, July 5th of 2026 because they're still working on establishing those accounts and setting those up. So how is this taxed? Well, the money when you put that in, there's no tax deduction when you contribute. The earnings grow tax deferred, and then when you pull it out, it will be taxable. Some will be taxable, and some will be return of basis, provided there is basis that the taxpayer had made some contributions, was family, friends, that type of thing. The distributions, you can't take the money out before the beneficiary turns 18. Now, I've had some people say, why not, if I have a newborn child and I'm short on cash, get the money and then cash it out. No distributions are allowed until they turn 18. Once they turn 18, the account automatically transitions into a traditional IRA. And if I'm a gambling man, I'm going to bet that the operating expense of 0.1% will go up from there and be charged what everyone else is paying for those types of investment accounts. Distributions from the accounts basically are treated like traditional IRA withdrawals. If I take money out too soon, meaning I'm not 59 and a half, there's a good chance that not only that I'll get the tax on the taxable portion, but a 10% penalty for early distribution. The goal is to keep this for retirement, and where the penalty would completely go off on the account is when the child turns 59 and a half. Well, if anyone's born in 2025, 59 and a half doesn't kick in until 2084. I won't be around to guide those people at that point as far as taxes go. But that's the concept is invest early, let it grow, use the time value of money, watch that grow, and then use it for retirement down the road. Let's talk about distributions as we take that money out. As I said, we have to keep track of basis. So, portion's going to be non-taxable if mom and dad made some contributions with after-tax money. Other parts, growth or whatnot, is going to be taxed as ordinary income. Now, that non-taxable portion, only the friends and family, the after-tax contributions are what we're concerned with, and when we're tracking a tax basis. So, anything that the government gets for a newborn, that $1,000, that's not basis. Employer contributions, remember, it's not taxed to the employee or to the beneficiary of that account. If you're not taxed on it, you don't pay for it with after-tax money. You don't get any basis in it. And then any payment, if you're lucky enough to have a charitable organization drop money into a child's account, that's not considered basis either because it's not taxed when you receive it. So here's an example. Let's say that someone has a Trump account she opened in 2026. Total balance is $60,000. Parents contributed 30, employer contributed another 10, and the rest is earnings. Basically, what you're looking at here is you've got some basis, 30,000 with a total balance of 60. So essentially 50 cents of every dollar. And if I take that distribution down the road, I'm going to have tax on that. So that 30,000 from the parents is considered basis only. So some tax planning. We talk about taking money early from a retirement account. If you take money from an IRA, and this becomes an IRA when they turn 18, there are some other exceptions to the 10% penalty other than being 59 and a half. First time home buyer distribution from an IRA, the first 10,000, so up to $10,000 is what you can take out for a first time home purchase. For higher education expenses, they waive the 10% penalty, or perhaps uh, we decide to adopt, or we just have expenses related to a birth of a child of our own. You can take up to $5,000 there without the 10% penalty. Now, the taxable portion will still be taxed, but this is the penalty on top of that taxable portion. So there are exceptions to that other than being 59 and a half. Now, the investment that we talked about, that qualified index fund, so whatever fund that's invested in is going to have those low operating expenses, but you can't pledge this account as collateral. So if someone wants to go out and buy a car, they can't say, "Hey, I've got a Trump account with $17,000 in it. I'll use that as collateral for my loan." That doesn't work. At least not until they get to 18. If they want to take a distribution, they certainly can. They can invest it however they want at that point. They don't have to keep it in that S&P 500 index fund. They can treat it like any other IRA, invest it anything they want. In fact, they can elect to convert some or all of it into a Roth IRA, and some people are going to be looking at that strategy as well. Some special rules when it comes to death and disability. When we talk about death, and it happens before the child turns 18, it ceases to be a Trump account and the funds can be taken out without any penalty. Death is one of the exceptions to any 10% penalty. And again, a tracking basis will be important because whether it's the estate or the named beneficiary on the account, they will basically have the same basis. This is considered income in respect of its decedent. So they'll have the same basis as the account owner would have had they not passed away. But so it's just the taxable portion has to be recognized, but no penalty there. Beneficiary becomes disabled before the age of 18. I like the ability here. The account balance can be rolled over without any kind of taxation into an ABLE account, which is a tax favored account for people that are physically or mentally handicapped. So if they become disabled, this Achieving a Better Life Experience account allows them to spend down some money for financial or some medical needs and lifestyle needs down the road. and that's something that happens if, God forbid, something happens to the child before they turn 18. Couple of things on the contributions. They can't be made until 12 months after the law was passed, and that was in July 4th of 2025. So July 4th is a holiday, so July 5 is the magic date that we're going to be looking at making contributions. The funds, as I said before, with the 4547, that can be established before this tax season, so before July, um, but we can't contribute or put any money into it. The government will go back and look at who was born in 2025 and early 26 and fund those accounts. If they have an established account, they'll establish an account on behalf of that particular child. So the $1,000 is kind of waiting until July 5 before money can go back in. So these investment accounts for children, these so-called Trump accounts, do not start until 2026, and then it goes forward from there. The temporary portion of this, we'll see if it continues, is the pilot program. That's for newborns for 2025 to 2028. In 2029, they have to pass an extender bill for that portion to continue. But that's the concept behind the Trump account and how the investments are held and when distributions can be taken, and then ultimately how it's taxed when they take that money out. Now, for more information on our seminars or just to sign up for our monthly free newsletter, if you want to order some textbooks or find out what topics we're teaching in this year's seminars and webinars, please go to our website at BTB.TAX and you can get all of that information there.